Critical questions about reality unanswered. The death of an icon. A story so extreme it earned the rare X rating. What are the most controversial sci-fi films of all time? Love them or hate them, someone made them. So let's take a look. After the release of Star Wars The Force Awakens in 2015, there were many popular theories floating around the internet about Rey's heritage. A brief dream sequence in The Force Awakens seemingly suggested that Rey's family is much more important than she initially realized. Some fans speculated that she could be Luke Skywalker's daughter, making her the cousin of Kylo Ren. In 2017's Star Wars The Last Jedi, Kylo Ren torments Rey by discussing her family history. He reveals a twist that nobody saw coming. Rey isn't descended from any established bloodline. Her parents were simply junk traders who abandoned her at a young age. There's nothing inherently important about Rey. She earned her role in the galactic conflict through merit alone. This divided Star Wars fans.
You have no place in this story. You come from nothing. You're nothing.
Some viewers felt that the revelation was brilliant, since Star Wars has always been about the power of personal choice and the freedom to create your own destiny. However, fans who were expecting a more obvious approach were disappointed by the different direction in which writer-director Rian Johnson chose to take the story. The ending of The Last Jedi is unique and makes the Star Wars universe feel even bigger. Interestingly, this choice was retconned in Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, which reveals that Rey is the granddaughter of Emperor Palpatine.
It is your birthright to rule here. It is in your blood.
The 2015 comic book film Fantastic Four had one of the most challenging production cycles in recent memory. 20th Century Fox hired Chronicle director Josh Trank to helm a reboot of Marvel's First Family. Trank wanted to radically reimagine the story and turn it into a science fiction body horror film in the style of David Cronenberg. This was met with backlash from Fox, and months before the film was released, extensive reshoots were done to change the tone and rework the ending. The final act of Fantastic Four features a tacked-on action sequence, which feels like it was taken out of a completely different movie. The troubled computer technician Victor Von Doom embraces his moniker Doom and begins wreaking havoc and destruction. Reed Richards, Susan Storm, Johnny Storm, and Ben Grimm are forced to team up to stop Doom. This feels like a more traditional comic book movie ending inserted into an experimental horror film. Fantastic Four reviews largely panned the flick, but fans and critics were divided on why the film was so bad. Trank's original concept for the movie might not have worked, but it may have been more interesting to see his completed story than to watch a studio-mandated action sequence. Even if Trank's vision was flawed, it was at least a unique interpretation. Nostalgia is a double-edged sword. There's a value in honoring what came before, but simply coasting on nostalgia is not enough to justify a film's existence. We've seen science fiction films in recent years that have both benefited and suffered from heavily playing on fans' nostalgia for established properties. Ghostbusters Afterlife divided fans over how it concluded. Up until the ending, it was a very unique entry in the franchise. Unlike the previous installments, which had all taken place in New York City, Afterlife was set within a rural city. It followed a group of younger characters, which made the series feel fresh again. During the final scene, the original Ghostbusters show up to help Phoebe Spangler, who is guided by the ghost of her grandfather, Egon, played by Harold Ramis. Ramis's mannerisms were brought back using CGI effects, which some fans felt was trying too hard to play on nostalgic feelings. However, the rest of Afterlife is so unique that the more familiar direction of the conclusion did not feel like an excuse for poor storytelling. Alan Moore's classic graphic novel Watchmen is one of the most celebrated works of literature in the history of superhero stories. The controversial director Zack Snyder adapted Watchmen into a feature film in 2009, and fans were divided. Snyder's adaptation is incredibly faithful to the original source material, and there are many moments and lines taken directly from the pages of the graphic novel. However, he made a major change to the story's conclusion. In the original story, the villain Ozymandias unleashes a squid monster on New York City, devastating the city's population. In the film, Dr. Manhattan is blamed for the attack. This change was shocking for fans, considering how similar the two stories had been up until that point.
I didn't want to worry you prematurely.
Within the context of the film, making Dr. Manhattan the scapegoat for the attack made sense. Watchmen was already a very long movie, and taking more time to introduce the squid storyline would have only made it feel bloated. Snyder's ending also ties into Dr. Manhattan's decision to leave Earth and live on Mars. It is kind of a miracle that the 2013 zombie thriller World War Z turned out to be as good as it was, especially since the film had a notoriously troubled production. Based on Max Brooks' critically acclaimed novel, World War Z explores the collapse of the world's political infrastructure in the wake of a zombie pandemic. The former United Nations agent Jerry Lane, played by Brad Pitt, is called back into duty to investigate the origins of the outbreak. One of the reasons that World War Z had such a challenging production cycle was that multiple versions of the script were being considered. During a series of reshoots, screenwriter Drew Goddard was brought in to come up with a completely different ending sequence. Jerry discovered that injecting himself with a dangerous pathogen would allow him to hide from the undead, leading scientists to begin developing a vaccine to protect humanity from the infected. While this may have felt like a change of pace, the more restrained climactic sequence actually works in the film's favor. After many epic combat scenes, it was interesting to see Jerry using science to outwit the zombies. A more traditional action sequence wouldn't have been as unique. While it is now considered to be one of the greatest science fiction movies of all time, John Carpenter's 1982 film The Thing was initially a box office disaster. It was a much different movie from what audiences had expected, even though it was based on the 1951 monster flick The Thing from Another World. Carpenter's remake is dark, disturbing, and devoid of hope, and the ending closes the film on a solemn note. After escaping from the bunker, R.J. MacReady and Childs take a moment to contemplate their fate, as either of them could be the monster. Originally, Carpenter had intended to confirm that MacReady was human, but the sequence he shot was cut. While the ending may have been deemed too bleak during the film's initial release, anything more hopeful would have clashed with the darker tone that had already been established.
If we've got any surprises for each other, I don't think we're in much shape to do anything about it.
Film fans have been debating the ending of Inception for over a decade. Christopher Nolan's science fiction heist flick is one of the most complex original blockbusters in recent memory, one that made audiences desperate to decipher its closing shot. The dream thief Cobb, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, has been waiting to see his children for the entire film, and he chooses to greet them instead of determining whether or not he is still dreaming. This ending provoked many thoughtful fan theories, but it also prompted some backlash from viewers who saw it as a cop-out. Despite the ambiguous nature of Cobb's reality, his character arc receives a satisfying conclusion. Cobb has accepted the world that he is living in, and whether it is real or still a dream is a question that may never be answered. There's a beauty in not knowing, and Nolan has yet to develop a sequel that could offer an explanation. Zack Snyder's 2016 film Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice is one of the most divisive comic book films of all time. While a passionate group of defenders claims it is a masterpiece, others see it as the embodiment of everything wrong with modern blockbusters. Similar to Man of Steel, Batman v Superman is packed with biblical metaphors, with Snyder reimagining Superman as a messianic figure, which many had to be killed off and then resurrected. Snyder has defended the controversial ending as the inevitable conclusion to the story. Unfortunately, Batman v Superman did not get the audience invested in Superman before he died, and he had yet to become that symbol of hope. Although his death was clearly inspired by the Death of Superman comic book storyline, that series came after readers had already gotten ample time to learn about the Man of Steel. Fans were not able to connect with Cavill's version of the character in the same way. Filmmaker M. Night Shyamalan is renowned for his shocking plot twists, drawing both criticism and praise for the ways in which he misdirects the audience. When looking at Shyamalan's filmography, it is easy to recognize both his successes and failures. Films like The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable conclude with satisfying twists, but flicks like Lady in the Water or The Happening fall completely flat with their last-minute revelations. However, Shyamalan's fans are divided on the final twist in 2002's Signs. In the climactic finale of the film, it is revealed that Earth's alien visitors have a secret weakness toward water. Some fans interpreted this as a plot hole, wondering why aliens would travel to a planet that is covered in oceans. However, Shyamalan indicates that the aliens are simply on an exploratory mission and have yet to learn very much about Earth. The conclusion of Signs is satisfying on an emotional level, as Mel Gibson's Graham Hess is able to reconnect with his children, Morgan and Beau, after they survive the alien encounter. Still, the question remains, does that make up for the remaining plot holes? Donnie Darko baffled audiences when it was initially released. Richard Kelly's 2001 time travel film tells the coming-of-age story of teenage loner Donnie, played by a young Jake Gyllenhaal. Donnie receives mysterious visions of a man in a bunny rabbit suit known only as Frank, who says that the world will end in 28 days, 6 hours, 42 minutes, and 12 seconds.
I can see right now!
Donnie orchestrates events that save his mother and sister from death. He also exposes a secret stash of child pornography held by the inspirational speaker Jim Cunningham. Our protagonist chooses to sacrifice himself in the end. It was a satisfying wrap-up to his character arc since no one will know about his selfless act, even though it changes his community for the better. The initial theatrical cut confused viewers because it wasn't clear how Donnie's fate fit within the Tangent universe. Fortunately, Kelly's 2003 director's cut made the complex mythology easier to understand. Director John Hillcoat's 2009 dark futuristic drama The Road struck many viewers as too bleak. Set in the aftermath of a worldwide crisis event, it's one of the darkest post-apocalyptic films ever made. The movie chronicles the exploits of a scavenger played by Viggo Mortensen and his young son played by Cody Smith-McPhee. While many praised the film for its realism, The Road was also criticized as hopeless by some critics. However, director John Hillcoat was only honoring the spirit of the Cormac McCarthy novel that inspired the film. Hillcoat allows the viewer to interpret the ending as either tragic or uplifting. After his father dies, Smith-McPhee's character meets a mysterious stranger, played by Guy Pearce, who offers to adopt him as part of his family. It is unclear whether or not Pearce's character is trustworthy, but the stranger convinces the boy that he is one of the good guys. Is he sincere or being deceitful? The Road is powerful because of its ambiguity. A Clockwork Orange was already a very controversial film before viewers saw its ending. Preceding the creation of NC-17, A Clockwork Orange was one of the few mainstream films that landed an X rating. The dystopian film's graphic violence and sexual content caused it to be banned in many countries. Director Stanley Kubrick even received death threats, as some audiences felt that he was glorifying the film's protagonist, Alex, played by Malcolm McDowell. However, it's clear from the final scene that Kubrick had a powerful message that he was trying to relay. Alex is a violent sociopath and undergoes psychiatric treatment to cure his behavior. Kubrick criticizes the failures of the government to curb juvenile delinquency and shows that even though the psychiatrist may have conditioned Alex not to act violently, he still has the same depraved fantasies. Therapy didn't really cure him, and the government doesn't actually have a solution to stop the cycle of violence.